Welcome and good afternoon to my friends in Prague, and good evening to my friends in Hong Kong. My name is Bernice. On behalf of International Association of Theatre Critics Hong Kong, I welcome everyone to join our online webinar tonight about the online shows. And this particular thematic talks series is called The Show Must Go On Line, and because we are going to launch our online performance archive later on, supported by the Hong Kong Arts Development Council, and because of this wonderful archive that we're going to launch later on, we have arranged a talk series, 3 talks with the ATI, and this is the first one that we're going to talk about how the performing arts artists and also the forms changes during the pandemic because of all this situation that we critically changes the ecology of performing arts. And this talks is our pleasure and also our great honor to be able to collaborate with the ATI and IATC and ATI. This is not our first collaboration. I actually visited ATI a few years ago, and I was very inspired by what they have done for the performing arts in Prague, and also about the documentation and the heritage they preserved for the Czech theatre. And all this experience and inspiration was later on presented in Hong Kong in some of our projects. And for tonight, it's really another good opportunity to work with ATI and in particular with Martina. And Martina is going to help us to moderate the talk for tonight. And of course, this is a very important and also significant talk series presented by ATI 2 years ago. And I'm sure that the experience of the ATI is going to give us more inspiration for the Hong Kong theatre practitioners. So over to you, Martina, for you to help us to host the talk series for tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Bernice. Good evening to all our guests and audiences in Hong Kong. And good afternoon to my Czech colleagues in Prague. You are ahead, so time-wise. My name is Martina Pecková-Černá, and as it was said, I will guide you through the Show Must Go Online thematic talk series. We have 3 evenings ahead of us, so I will explain a little bit of the context right now. But before we start, I would like to thank the International Association of Theatre Critics Hong Kong, and especially to Bernice Chan, for initiating this dialogue between Czech and Hong Kong performing arts, documentation, and research organizations. As Bernice mentioned, this thematic talk series is not the first collaboration between the Arts and Theatre Institute in Prague and the International Association of Theatre Critics Hong Kong, and we hope strongly into following our dialogue also further on. In the upcoming 3 talks, we will try to reflect latest developments in the performing arts in relation to the global challenges facing human civilization, and with it, also the cultural sector. We will share examples of good practice and ideas that accompany the current changes in the life arts, and I very much hope that we will also inspire each other, for example, to collaborate further. In preparing the structure of the Show Must Go Online thematic talk series, we have drawn on the activities that the Arts and Theatre Institute has carried out in direct response to the anti-pandemic restrictions of the last 2 years. But not only that, also to the other challenges that are valid too for the cultural sector, such as the climate crisis and the transformation of today's societies, and along with it, of course, also the theater audiences. So just to mention which activities we have done in the last 2 years and which were kind of inspiration for this series of talks, they were the Show Must Go On offline discussion series and the ShowOff podcast series that started in autumn 2020. Then the International Training Program Digitally, which is a European project of 6 European partners, and it's focused on dancers and contemporary circus artists. And then as the last one, the very basics of performing arts online cycle, which we organized directly in spring 2020 when the SARS-CoV-19 pandemic broke out. This series, and it was mentioned already, have been produced by the Arts and Theatre Institute, mainly by the PerformCzech team, and also in collaboration with other international partners. We are used to be part of many international networks and projects. And also we counted on with the support from various international funds, such as International Visegrad Fund, Creative Europe Program, and of course, our main donor, which is the Ministry of Culture, Czech Republic. I would like to mention a little bit about our background. The Arts and Theatre Institute is a state organization established by the Ministry of Culture, Czech Republic in 1959, so we are quite an old organization. And we have 3 main missions. The first and the original one is to document and archive Czech theater. So that's what Bernice mentioned also, that she got familiar with our methods and our archives and databases. The second one is to foster international collaboration in the field of performing arts and also other artistic disciplines such as music and interdisciplinary projects. And the third one is to research Czech theater and to publish specialized literature in performing arts, arts in general, and in culture policy. Me personally, I am coming from the International Cooperation Department, which works with the brand PerformCzech. We also work with the motto shortening the distance between Czech and foreign performing arts. And we provide a range of activities related to international cooperation of the current Czech performing arts scene, mainly theater, dance, contemporary circus, and multidisciplinary projects. PerformCzech is also an information portal, as you see on your screens. It's a website in English dedicated to Czech performing arts, and it's designed for professionals and provides information about the current Czech performing arts scene and mediates informations, contacts, propositions for international collaboration. We initiate a range of projects, platforms, and activities that link the current Czech performing arts scene with artists, organizations, networks, and partners abroad. We support professional growth and internationalization of the contemporary Czech performing arts scene. But back to our talks. I mentioned some of our previous projects, and we should go into the topics now. Our main questions when we organized our talks and discussions were the following ones, and I believe that they are still valid until nowadays. What is the essence of theater? How does it adapt to the new circumstances given by the pandemic and other challenges? Is it necessarily tied to a space divided into a stage and an auditorium, to a physical space at all? Would theater be theater even if it was performed for a single spectator? What about without spectators? We warmly welcome the opportunity to meet again some of the speakers, artists, culture managers, or academics we have worked with in the mentioned projects and cycles, and to reflect on current trends in the performing arts from a contemporary perspective. And I sincerely hope that in cooperation with our Hong Kong colleagues, we will spark a debate that will allow us not only to name these trends, but also to get to know each other's theater cultures. Today, we will get back to some episodes of our Show Must Go On offline discussion series, which are followed by a podcast series called ShowOff. The Show Must Go On offline discussion series is featuring guests from the ranks of theater and dance artists, curators, culture managers, and academics from the Central and Eastern European region, and from other countries from all over the world. In dialogue with them, we try to map the performing arts emerging strategies and responses to global paradigm shifts. And the online discussions take place live on the Zoom platform where we are right now as well. And recordings of them are made available on our YouTube channel, which is called PerformCzech YouTube channel. So you can follow these discussions later on recorded. The ShowOff podcast series brings summaries from these discussions, and each episode of these audio essays is written by the moderator of each particular discussion we organized. And the podcast episodes are also available on the ShowOff Simplecast platform. We have realized so far 13 episodes, and we were touching on topics such as Green Deal for performing arts, artistic education, digital shift in performing arts, healing, therapeutic and social role of theater, the mission of theater festivals. We had also one discussion about drama in quarantine and other topics. So today we invited two guests. They are both of them Czech theater artists, which were part of our previous discussions in the cycle I've just mentioned. And these guests are Tereza Dobiášová and David Košťák. So now I would like to ask them to appear also through their video on our screens. And I would like to start with an introduction of these two artists, which will share their ideas on current trends in performing arts with us. And they will also present their projects dealing with new technologies and with online tools in theater creation. I will start with Tereza. Tereza Dobiášová is an author, artistic director, curator, and culture manager. Hello, Tereza.
Hi, good to see you.
So, Tereza, your professional trajectory is connected not only with theater, but also with visual arts and lately with literature. And I would like to congratulate because you just were awarded with the Czech National Literary Award Magnesia Litera for your novel as a debut of the year. So congratulations. But let's turn to the theater creation because here we will talk about performing arts mainly. You are working mainly in the independent sector. Let's say if I go through your professional trajectory, you were working with your group Children on Color, integrating foreigners into society. Then you funded the UL Institute with the goal to open up a children museum in Prague. And you were director of the gallery Sladovna Písek, which is located in southern region of the Czech Republic, and which you transformed into the major Czech children museum, recognized also internationally. Maybe we could start with your professional background, with your context. So let's start with an easy question. It's up to you how you want to answer it. So could you just comment what are your main personal missions and values in your professional creation, in your professional life? What is the background? What is the context?
Well, maybe I should really start with that where I started, what I studied, and because that somehow made my way through life and later. I studied theater in Prague. I studied dramaturgy and directing. And the whole experience of studying it was actually like the classical text-based theater, actually getting prepared for the big classical text-oriented scenes. And I learned a lot there, of course, but the whole study was important for me, maybe the most in the way that I experienced theater as kind of like a laboratory of being human. You know, that you can really like try out situations which you're not normally able to live in your real life, that you can try it out really lightly, like a play, but it gets very serious. And that's what I experienced in all the rehearsal rooms and in all the rehearsals at a school. In fact, I was missing a little bit than in the classical theater life, where I just started working there as a dramaturg. I simply thought it's a little bit of pity that, you know, that the part of the process which is most lively, the rehearsing, where the people really go through the situations, where they experience it, that it's limited only for actors, and then in the life circles or in the life processes of the performances themselves, when they just come to the audience, so the audience is simply allowed to consume the performances, but that they're not admitted into the creative process. And for this, I was a little bit sorry. And I felt that actually the theater people, because of that, tend to be a little bit narcissistic. And in fact, I wasn't tempted to do it so much. So quite early, I left the classical theater, the public theaters, the big theaters. And I started a little theater group where we worked with foreigners. And I was experimenting with that, how to use theater as a medium of, let's say, integration, of a tool, how to help them to learn the language and to become a part of community. And very early, as the mission of the theater was social, of course, I wasn't able to select, you know, the people I worked with based on talent or their education. And so I also had to learn to work with actors and with my collaborators in a very different way than I was actually taught at the professional theater school. And I had to really learn how to motivate the people to step into the situation, how to stimulate them to trust themselves, to really try out, to be free playing, to get engaged. So I had to learn a lot, new things. So I really started working with improvisation, with physical theater, with singing. I started working a lot with also like children games. And in a way, I just found some way to basically be able to do theater almost with anyone. And like this, I was doing it for quite some time, maybe let's say like 6-7 years. When I came to a point when I realized that it's actually great to have children present in these processes, because they simply play on their own, like, you know, play is the way they learn. And when you have children around theater, so also they help adults to get like deeper into the play. And that was, this discovery somehow like made it possible for me to see that there can be also some forms beside theater. And that's how I actually found children museums. And then I actually I applied for a position of a director of one quite big gallery for children, which at the time didn't work very well, but was quite well funded. So I actually applied for the position of director and won it, and actually transformed it into kind of a children museum. And still, I was actually doing basically the same thing. I was enabling people, children and their adults, their teachers, to play and to learn through play. It simply wasn't called theater anymore. It was just called Children Museum. I first started with creating like scenographies, scenographical setting, but then I also started training the staff we worked with a lot. And then in the end, I got into I got in a way like back to the theater forms where you work more again, like with really like situations, basically with altogether categories you work normally in theater with, but that it was just interactive. And since I left the gallery, which I did maybe 3 years ago, so I continue developing interactive setting or gallery formats for museums, galleries. But sometimes I, again, do kind of a theater. I started to do also online theater, and then I started writing again.
Thank you very much for this context. I think it's very important also to explain to our audiences and spectators maybe a little bit of theater history of in our region, let's say, not only in the Czech Republic. It's important to note that independent professional arts are connected with the post-1989 development, connected with political and social changes in Central and Eastern Europe, when the cultural sector went through a process of decentralization from the exclusively state-governed system. So this independent sector, not only in theater, but in art general, is very important pillar of the cultural system and theater system in our countries. And it's also an important ambassador of Czech culture on international level, because many independent theater, dance, new circus projects are parts of international projects and networks, and they're really very internationally connected. So Tereza explained a little bit her motivation, why not to work with public institutions, with theater institutions, what were the motivations, or what was her personal trajectory. Let's turn to David Košťák. David is actually, he graduated at the same faculty as Tereza, but his working conditions are different, because David is employed in Švanda Theater in Prague, and Švanda Theater in Prague is a theater institution, let's say, because it's a theater established and financed by the city of Prague. David is a playwright and dramaturg. As dramaturg, he works mainly for the Švanda Theater in Prague, but his plays are staged also in other circumstances. Švanda Theater is an important Prague theater, which can seat 300 visitors in its main hall. And it has yet a smaller studio for 50 to 100 visitors, which is also providing theater and other programs. Maybe also to explain the context of the Prague city theater culture, the city of Prague runs, besides other cultural organizations, in total 10 theaters. One of them is a musical theater, 2 theaters are for children and young audiences, and the rest is combining mainly dramatic theater with other genres and programs. But David, tell us something about the profile of Schwanda Theatre. What is the mission of the theatre? What is its repertory, and who are the audiences?
Important to say at the beginning is to remind that Schwanda Theatre has 2 stages, which allows us to have 2 lines of dramaturgy. The small stage is much closer to independent theater because we have only 60 seats there, so we don't feel such a tension to really fill up the hall. So we are trying to have it more like a laboratory where we work on contemporary dramaturgy with young students or absolvents of theater academy, and also we really want to create shows that invoke debate some sort. Lately, we're trying to do just the first step, but the second one as well, and therefore we have discussions after the shows, which is the case of the show that I will be talking later as well. And the main stage, or the big one with 300 stages, it has somehow quite a regular dramaturgy of municipal theater, in a way that we are trying to balancing like our artistic goals together with the commercial potential of the theater, because we are still we still have to like fill the stage and the seats. And we have 3 lines of dramaturgy up there. One of them is like modern staging of classic literature, then contemporary writing, and then Czech new plays that we are to initiate more and more Czech writing lately.
I mentioned that you are not only dramaturg of the theater, but also playwright. So maybe we can present very shortly also your own writing. Would you be able maybe to present what are the main topics or main characteristics of your plays? And where are they staged maybe?
Okay, well, my personal goal or mission as a playwright is very similar to my personal mission as a dramaturg. That for me, it's very important to reflect the world we live in, the time we live in, because, you know, most of people today think that the contemporary playwright should be the new Shakespeare, something that we'll have here after many years. But I don't agree with this opinion, because I think that it's okay if the play gets older in a year or 2. It's important that it speaks about what we're going through now, so we can actually present something that the audience can relate to and also can be immersed with, because me as a playwright, I tend to, even though I work with the region theaters as a playwright who writes for children, but also for a classical theater, I always tried to approach themes that are like invitation for discussion in a way. It's more visible with the themes that I try to bring with children, and I like to work with like psychologists who works with children as well. Last play I wrote is like the laugh of a death, which is the access in Czech, which I worked with organization who helps families to deal with death, and the show just shows a family that's going through hard time with one of the children dying, and I just think that it's very important to speak about those things with children, don't make it taboo. Or one of the things I enjoyed lately very much is working with a company or project Nesladim, which works also with psychiatrists, and its main goal is to destigmatize health issues. And I work on that with Linda Dušková. We did a project about suicides, and we're planning to do one about the traumas, or we want to work with stories of people who went directly or indirectly through abortion.
Are some of your plays translated into other languages, maybe into English, or made accessible for international audiences as well?
Yeah, actually, there are some plays in Spanish who were part of this project about destigmatization of depression. Or I had a presentation in Milan. So one of my play, Over the Spilled Milky Way, is translated both in English and Italy. And I had a presentation in Paris of my play, Laika, which is a story of the dog sent to space from the dog's perspective, and it's about the responsibility we have for others. I would say, if I should sum up like the main theme of my plays, really, it's the responsibility we have as individuals for not only our close others people, but for the world we live in.
Thank you for these introductory words to both of you. And now let's immerse into our main topic, which is somehow to reflect what has happened with performing arts in the last 2 or 3 years, and how the pandemic influenced the trends or changes in performing arts. We will do it through 2 projects, which are somehow born in the pre-pandemic era, but they are influenced by pandemic. The result is influenced in a way by pandemic. So let's present now the 2 projects we selected for this talk. Firstly, it's the project Free Like a Bird, and then the project When Robot Writes a Play. Free Like a Bird is an interactive performance, which, if I'm correct, Tereza, was born as a normal theater project, let's say, with partners in Italy. But then in the pandemic period, it turned into an online version. And it was produced in collaboration with the National Theatre in Prague. So can you tell us the story of this project and how it was shaped by the circumstances under which it was born?
Yeah, so it was really, it was created actually as a part of international project together with Italians and Romanians. And the main mission of the project was to create such a medium of how to deal with teenagers and with their issues. Because the culture, actually the contemporary culture, leaves out teenagers quite a lot. You know, a lot of cultures for adults, like the majority. Then you have quite a big part of the culture actually working with children, you know, fairy tales, and we're quite good in working with children till they are 10. And then there is such a big gap starting with children, let's say 11, and till let's say 15 or 16 years old, we simply don't know what's going on with them. And of course, when I was starting to work on this project, my older daughter was turning about this age. And I figured out that there's really a lot which is happening at a time of this age, and we don't know at all about. So we started working. I was doing actually quite a lot of long series of workshops with pre-teenagers and teenagers, trying to figure out what they're dealing with, and also studied a lot about psychology, and also about rituals which were usually done in cultures to bring the people from the children era to the adult era. And in the end, we created such a format which is almost like a theater, but writing a script was quite an issue for it, because children are really very strongly engaged in it. So it looks like that when a group of children or a group of visitors come, so we do a little introduction. We just say that we built a little theater for them, and that they will be allowed to become a part of it. And then they enter the theater and they watch a very short show, let's say like 5 minutes, the show which gets fucked up. And then there's such a online director. He interviews the actors, and they just say that they're so sorry, but the whole performance just was so wrong, and that they really are terribly sorry. And actually ask the audience to come in and to actually rehearse a show. And in such a short workshop, they teach them some sequence of movements, and then they to mask themselves with them, and then they play the performance with them. It was actually very immersive. It was a beautiful show, and it was really very touching and also very helpful to the children, because they could actually work with their shame, with the problems they have with coming closer to each other, to expressing themselves. For them, their teachers, their parents, it was a very actually strong experience. And we were about to close the whole project, also financially, and then the COVID came. And of course, we weren't able to do the final event. And because I'm also a culture manager, and I know what it means not to be able to close a project financially when you need to pay all the artists and all these things. So I said, and at a point I didn't know what it would mean. Okay, so let's do it online somehow. And the Italian team said, okay, let's do it. And so I was thinking at the time, of course, because we were using at the time Zoom, Skype a lot. So I said, when we are able to somehow connect, communicate through Zoom, maybe we could really do the theater through it. And I tried to write a script where we would use actually a little bit more the mediums that the computer allows you, because it's a little bit like a film acting, that you really can work a lot, with detail, that you work actually with a camera, that you see yourself. So you can work actually as if you worked with a glass, with a mirror, as we used in the original performance. And we simply ask ourselves what we can do, how we can get engaged, like you get on online conferences, in this format. The beginning was really tough, because all of us, the whole team, we missed being together in the theater. Like the emotional barrier was terrible. You know, like my Italian co-director was screaming, the dancers were crying all the time. It was tough, but we somehow rehearsed it. It's also quite difficult to rehearse it when you really work with engagement. And then the luck was that we did it with Italian children, because the social intelligence in Italy is really higher than it is in Czech Republic. They're like easier to communicate with, easier to get them opened. And at the time when we were trying it out, when we had like the first test runs, we worked with children in Milano, which was at the time like the heaviest, where the COVID was the hardest at the time. So there were really, many children had their like someone dying in the family. It was quite tough. And in the performance, we also reflected COVID. We reflected like the being teenager, but we also reflected the loneliness, the isolation of COVID, and how it is to get together through the screen. And luckily, thanks to the first Italian groups, we somehow made it work. Then we made such like a short Italian tour. And then as I was planning to do the original production with National Theatre in Prague, so we actually made a co-production of them. What you're watching now, so this is actually from the first part when the two dancers and the online director actually have the rehearsed part. And these pictures are already when they invite the audience to get masked and to start dancing with them. Altogether, I think we played about 120 performances. We played for really very various audience, for school groups, for families. We played for children with disabilities. We play like this, what you see in here. So this is really like a group of adults, like, like a, normal ticket sale. And when we were playing it, so I was actually rewriting the script continuously, as also the pandemic was changing and the topics were a little bit shifting. So in the time I had, I think maybe 17 versions of the script. We also changed the music we worked with during the time. And it became such a like sharing platform. The engagement of the audience was really very, very strong. And in the time, the team, the actors and the online directors also learned really to work in such a very soft, non-aggressive way with the audience, with working their emotions, with inviting them into the action, with leading them in and leading them out, always like discussing it in the end. So it was in the end actually a very successful project, and for many of us in the quarantines, a very important event actually to happen, to share.
Thank you, Tereza. Actually, when we were talking about using all these tools like Zoom or other platforms to try to proceed with theater or live arts during the pandemic restrictions, we faced a lot of resistance because many people or professionals were mentioning that this is not theater, that it's not real acting, there is not this exchange of energy, all the emotional part is falling away in these projects. But your project is unique, probably in the way that you succeeded to get a lot of interaction of your audiences and connection with your audiences. When you are looking at it back now from the perspective of the, let's say, and let's hope post-pandemic situation, because now we are living in Europe really without any restrictions. We went into kind of new normal. We are freely moving around, we are meeting, we are having festivals, we are having live arts productions. But when you look back at this project, was this online experience in a way also enriching or inspiring for your further work? Are you like, when you think about some new theater projects of your own, do you plan to include it somehow into your creation, or are you just happy that you can do again theater live and in a way it used to be before the pandemic broke out?
Well, you know, I think the difference, that's also why I talked about the professional background and the way I've gone through professionally. I think that for me, this was a little bit different than for most of theater people, because what is really most important for me is the engagement with the audience. I'm simply not building formats to be simply watched. So if I create formats to be shared, and if I was in this condition that the only possibility was the through computer, so I simply worked with the through computer. And the experience was totally enriching and totally inspiring. So for me also, the time wasn't like that it would be something worse than the normal reality is. You know, thanks to this, I was also able to live actually with my family, like in the country, which I'm normally not, because I just have to travel and be in the cities. And then I still had like my theater group, which was just meeting on the computer. And we somehow made it work. It really didn't happen like in a short time. It was a really very tough and precise work into every performance with every group which came, to really have a strong, also very, 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 very different emotional engagement and emotional experience. So every performance was really about real human sharing, and also of the audience, not only of the actors. So for me, it was not something like, okay, so this is gone and now there is a normal life. For me, somehow it simply continues on. I'm not doing now much online, and I'm happy for it, but I know that it can come back, and I will do it again gladly. Yeah. Still, but you know, until people are alive, I think we still need to share, and we really need also to share the up to moment contents. And I'll simply do it however it is possible. And this is what I learned through life. So yeah, this was another test, and moving it to another level, which I also didn't believe in the beginning that it will work, but it worked.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let's turn to the next project or performance theater creation, which is called When a Robot Writes a Play. It's a theater production produced by Schwanda Theater, which directly collaborates with artificial intelligence. David will tell us more how was the whole process, but let's just note that it's not that extraordinary that artificial intelligence is used not only for logical operations and code analytical work, but also for artistic creation. But it's true that we meet it more often in music, literature, and visual arts. It's not that usual in performing arts. Maybe dance through some visual parts is working with it a little bit, but not that much dramatic theater. Therefore, the Schwanda Theatre's project is quite unique because it implemented artificial intelligence or integrated artificial intelligence into a development of a theater performance. So David, could you tell us how this project was born? It has a special context, why this topic was chosen, connected with the anniversary of Karel Čapek's play RUR about robots, and how did it develop? How was the process?
Okay. So before first we can see the first of the trailer, but before Barbara, we see a bit of it. I just wanted to say that this meeting has a great dramaturgy because we have from complete empathy to no empathy whatsoever. But just to have a bit about the project, we were approached by Tomáš Studeník, the initiator of the project Theater, and he had this idea that it was 100 years since it was invented the word robot by Karel Čapek in his theater play RUR, and therefore he wanted to see whether the technology today is far enough to have artificial intelligence to write a play about Karel Čapek, and this was the beginning of the project. And now I please ask for the video.
Nevěděl jsem, že jsem schopen těchto pocitů, ale miluji vaše lesklé křivky. Miluji tě.
Je mi líto, ale já nejsem robot, to je jenom kostým.
Prosím, máš navíc.
Omlouvám se, já nejsem tak sexy jako ty. Jsem jenom modelka.
Jak dlouho ještě? Jen pár minut vydržte. Už brzo umřu. Už brzo umřu. To bylo velmi dobré obětí. No, užil jsem si to. Skvělý čas. Víš, musím tě toho tolik naučit. Bude mi trvat hodně dlouho, než to vysvětlím.
Okay, if we can lower the sound just a bit. Thank you. I will leave the video on so you can see something more interesting than my face. But soon enough, we've learned that the theater, well, the artificial intelligence can't really write a play like from the meaning, like to write the like in the original sense. It can write a text that can be performed on theater, but not a classical drama. Because our technician team, they used language model GPT-2, which was trained on articles, and its main way how to create a text, therefore dialogues as well, is through association of words simply. It really works like if you have in Gmail these days, that it finishes the sentences for you. So that's basically how the generator of the play works like, but instead of one sentence, it generates whole pages of a text. And because we soon learned enough that it's more about the dialogues and not the dramatic situations, I decided that we'll have a easier task than to write a classic drama about Karel Čapek by artificial intelligence, but I wanted to create scenes for a theater that could be staged in those, since I wanted the human impact as little as possible. So I decided to create multiple theater scenes, involved always a robot and one human. And I wanted the robot to be confronted with something that is completely opposite of the robot, like emotions, life, death. And so I created many scenes, and then out of those scenes we choose 8 of them which are part of the show. So and now we're playing the show, we have it on our repertoire in the theater, and there's also always a debate afterwards. But during the COVID, we had the luxury to really meet, and we rehearsed it with our company, but it wasn't played live. It was streamed first through internet internationally, and it allowed us to actually have a much wider feedback that we would usually have, because we played the show in a studio of 60 seats, while the video, when it premiered, had really 1,000 views, and it was a way how to use really the time when we weren't able to have the direct contact with our classic audience, to kind of use it to answer the question whether robot can write a play, because we perceived the show not, our goal wasn't to create a perfect show of a perfect play. Our goal was to answer the question whether a robot can write a play.
Of course, I have to ask, when you raise this question, if the answer is that robot can write a play, but maybe let's ask in a different way. Was it in a way enriching for you and for your writing to work with these texts generated by artificial intelligence? Was it in a way inspiring, or was it a different way of work as a dramaturg, as someone who is adapting the text for particular staging, than if you work with a live author or with a real author with whom you can dialogue and you can discuss and you can even dispute? So in what way was this different for you, and what is maybe something you can work further in your further work with? What are you taking from this project?
Well, first, to answer the difference between the robot writer and the living writer, when they told me that I'll be working with a playwright who can't really talk back, who have to accept my feedback, then I was kind of looking forward to it, but soon enough, I've learned that it's not any easier, because just to be more specific, when you're generating the text, me as a like dramaturg, I had to put there the input, like short description of a scenes and 2 lines of a dialogue, and then the computer generated the text for me. Which the first text was written within few minutes, really, but the biggest difference is like when living author gives you a first draft of his text. It's rarely perfect, but you give the playwright a feedback, you have a dialogue, and you try to kind of explore his text, to go in the depth of it, and you kind of, through every version, you're getting closer to the perfect outcome, while the robot gives you a first draft, and if you don't accept it, it just offers you another first draft. So it's not a qualitative work, it's a quantitative work, because often people ask, like, if the computer can generate like 2 pages within 1 minute, then you have a whole play written in 1 day. But it's really not true, because it will generate 2 pages within 1 minute, but you can't not everything there is able to be used for staging or of any quality. So it's more that my work as a dramaturg was just basically based on a choice, and there was no creative dialogue whatsoever. So I actually in this sense, I didn't enjoy the work because I had no partner working with the computer. But if there's a possibility for me to work with it, or if I'm asked whether it inspired me in some sense, I must say that because of the program has no sense of how the real words looks like, then sometimes when I offered him the input, it really offered me something that I wouldn't think about myself. So I think that it's something that can help us to think outside of the box, because sometimes when you read or see too much realistic stuff, it's very hard to leave this conventional thinking. Like so this is something that that could help me maybe, but I would use it just like something that can push me further, but not really continuously. So this was definitely interesting, and but still frustrating in some sort. Yeah.
So a tough process as well, not easy, like exploring new paths in theater creation, as it was mentioned also in case of Tereza's project. Now I would like to invite into our conversation also our further respondent, Chan Tai-yin. Tai-yin is a theater maker trained in the UK. He is an actor and director. He worked with Hong Kong Arts Festival, and his recent project, the Waste Use Watching Seagull, explored storytelling on social media. So hello, Tai-yin.
Hello.
My question is very easy. How far were these two projects inspiring for your work, or can they be somehow compared with what you are trying to explore in your creation, or what you explored during the pandemic? Tell us something about your creation and your observations.
Yeah, it's very interesting because the experience of COVID in Hong Kong was very different than it was in Europe. At the very beginning, we of course we were still locked down, but the cases was not rising very quickly, so we still was in a kind of close to normal situation. But then slowly we have to adapt into, like everywhere else, that we need to start to put our theater works online, and venues are closing. One of the things that I found very interesting from what Tereza was talking about is that the frustration of the performers and the patience that takes to work on the new form, because at the end of the day, it's really not desirable at the beginning, right? So one thing that I found quite inspiring for me is to really dig into the patience that takes for the audience to see the shows online, because like sometimes I compare reading and other kind of cultural activities with theater. In the theater, you have to go in a live performance. You have to go into the theater. You get locked down in the theater for a certain period of time to see the show. You have a different kind of attention. But here in online performances, audiences are kind of free to do whatever they want to do, right? This is something that I found difficult to handle at the beginning when I did one of the work that you just mentioned. It's a social media performance, because it took a very, very long time. It's not live. We kind of produce a little bit of content every now and then, maybe every 2 days or 3 days. It took a long time for the story to unfold, and it's based on Chekhov's seagull. And it's interesting to experiment with how audiences react with a very different way they see normal theater. And when I saw the video of these young dancers in Teresa's work, that same feeling came back to me, that actually we have to slow down as performers and creators, and also for the audiences to slow down, because they're not really reading a book. They thought, or they have a perception of that these performances were from theater practitioners, but they definitely have to adjust their expectations. So I really wonder what were the experience you have, Teresa, that how did the audiences responded in terms of that, and is that something that worth rethinking? That like Martina was saying at the beginning of this talk, that what is necessary for theater?
Well, I think this is really something which has to be really like going into the online, like start performing online or working online, which has to be really considered and really which you need really to take a lot of time for this and a lot of patience to get used to this, is that when you work with people not in the theater, but with people who are at home or, at schools, but still just in front of the screen, that the attention is different and the perception of time is different. So what made it a little bit easier for me maybe is that I'm really used to swapping different roles, that I'm just like used to work as a theater director, but I'm also used to work in galleries with children, with adults, but then, talking on a conference. So I was more, I just like knew that for me, generally, I'm not so stuck to one form. So maybe this made it a little bit easier. And then what also made it easier was that this theater, this Italian group I work with, is really used to test everything actually very soon. That that if you have like a first draft of script, so normally in theater you usually work on it with the director for some time and then rehearsing, and everything happened, and then comes the audience. But working with this group, which I worked already, maybe let's say 3 years already in the moment. So I, as an author, I know that if I just like kick in first draft, so in one day there's audience already at it. So I have to handle the imperfection, like my own imperfection, imperfection of my text, and to try it out. And also in this project online, we started very early, like testing it. And so the process of the creation was in fact, quite long, but a lot of it like really happened with testing with the audience. And basically I was after every rehearsal, I was rewriting the text because simply the same text didn't work, which would work in the theater. So it was something like, you know, I still wanted to put there some thoughts or some reflective texts, but on one way it was like writing text for socials. So the work was actually very, very intensive of the creative team. And yeah, and you simply have to react on what the people react on. And also what we were actually, maybe what you are talking about, that like actually doing project on socials, it's a little bit different than the project we did, because we worked, let's say like for an hour, concentrated with one group. So we really did like introduction in the beginning. We really had to figure out certain rules and actually to make everyone aware of these rules, to fix things technically, that that you are able to get some flow and to get the people to the point that they really experience some flow. So it might feel like that it just that you just don't want to do it as an actor, to tell people like how to put on Zoom and, you know, how to use it. But you have to do it, otherwise you won't get the people concentrated. And if you don't get the people concentrated, you have no chance to create a flow with them. So the preparation of this was actually quite important. And also the people, the actors and the online director, they had to be very careful what was happening. So when they were acting, when they were talking, they had to really watch very carefully how the audience was reacting. And also the script was written in a way that they were just like moments quite like fast after each other, simply like to check, to, you know, to have a feedback from the audience, whether they are still with you or whether you lost them. And if you lost them, so you have to do something to get them back. So this is quite special, and still you cannot really be bossy. You have to be gentle and, you know, be like a really super soft moderator. And then you have 60 minutes maximum, because you won't be able to keep the people in front of the screens longer. So it is really something to learn.
Well, also us, we have last 15 minutes for our talk. So let's open the virtual floor also to our attendees in this webinar. You are free to write down your questions to the Q&A session if you wish to comment on or to ask our guests something. So it's up to you now. Where we want to head with our discussion. Maybe Bernice has a question as the first.
Yes, I had a very interesting question for David, because your project is really fascinating. And as the sharing that you just present, may I know the script? Is the script a very serious one? If what I am curious about is the robot, can you type in something like, I need some humor, and how the AI is going to respond to you about you need some humor or something interesting in the text? Because it's quite a different kind of response for us when we trim or to adjust a bit on the text. We can adjust it a bit, but as you just mentioned, it seems that it's not really possible to adjust a bit. So how's the situation if some emotions you need the robot to respond to you in this particular context?
Well, I've had to learn what is the best input for it, because when I was putting their realistic lines, then it became very absurd and you couldn't keep up with it, to the dialogue. So I tried to work with the sci-fi genre because it's not a realistic world, so it continues with that as well. But also sometimes I made small pushes when I needed the dialogue to move further. So I wrote there a new line, which was new input for it to generate from. But the problem was that there was no bar, how to say, like make it more funny or make it less funny, more dramatic, and the problem is because it was trained on the texts that were written before, and it works with algorithms, so it works with cliches in a way. And what I always said, that for me it wasn't that much revealing about the robot, but about the human writing, because whatever two characters I put together, the scene most likely ended with sex or with violence. Even when I put their like grandfather with his like grandson, it ended up with one of those things. So, and it just shows like what are our most common themes that we talk about in every genre. So that's problematic. But also, to be honest, I think that is actually what it makes, why this is attractive to us first, because no one wants a perfect writing of a robot, because then it's just a copy of what we write. So at this point, it's not perfect. It writes more absurd drama, but I think that it's why it can be interesting. Because actually, when I was thinking about it, I think that actually the fact that it makes mistakes, it makes it original. Because what is originally like what is to be original? It's that you make mistake to something that you think about like conventional. Like my origin in my writing is a mistake towards the reality I live in. So I think that this is something that can be interesting about the writing at this point. But I'm more skeptic towards the future than when it gets better, the program, the less interesting it will be for me.
Thank you so much for your sharing. And I'm not sure whether if tie-in, will you have any feedback about this interesting sharing from David?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I noticed about your show from the video I saw, there wasn't a lot of technology, kind of like projections and that kind of fancy stuff. Did you have a process going through those things, or is it just it's about AI and I'm just going to stick with that? Did it ever come to your mind?
When I was generating the text as a dramaturg, it was more about my relation to the artificial intelligence. But when we had the script, we approached it as a regular rehearsing, that it was like then interpreted with the director, with actors, which of course is kind of a mistake towards the point of the project, because then the human impact is much bigger because you have to interpret it in some sort. But we had a second phase of the project when we worked when we tried to have a more linear text, and it was presented only as a stage reading, and it actually worked much better because we could present the text as it is and people could interpret it themselves. While this kind of the show, we approached it the same way the robot approached it, as he works with the cliches of a sci-fi. We kind of put all the cliches we know from the sci-fi and put it in the show. But still, it was our artistic decision. It wasn't a decision of the computer, because actually the artificial writing now, it's more like a improvisation theater, that it works perfectly as a prompt. You have a prompt for it and it generates with that. And I think that now if I did the project again, I would have just one character that is written by computer, because then it would be more like a dialogue with the robot. And it would be for me interesting, because it's the robot who kind of helps you to navigate through the text, but here was just the outcome of fortune, like that. It's very much like what Dadaistic writer did, because you're just waiting for the roulette to offer you something of the sentence. Yeah, but we had a classic rehearsal process afterwards. Yeah.
And I do have another question for Tereza, because I realized from the video that you just presented to us, there's a lot of like female participant. I'm not sure whether it's that particular show that attracts a female participant rather than the male participant. And I'm curious about if you do have any observations on the gender of the online shows. Will there be possibilities that female participants, like, because in general, like, I mean, theater goers are relatively female participants or audience are more than the male participants. Is that the same situation for the online shows as well?
I would say it's even more dramatical. Actually, like this run was really like purely female, which also didn't happen so often. But I would say that given the situation, you know, like the lockdown and the COVID, that for women who are simply, I would say, I know it's a bit of a cliche and generalization, but I think women need a little bit more sharing and also emotional sharing. And somehow it seemed to me that men are more able to cope with it. And that the women, and you know, this happened a lot, like with the teachers who were actually doing the reservations for their classes, that they needed kind of emotional therapy for themselves, that, you know, that they needed to dance, you know, to put on makeup, to just to sing together, to talk about emotions. So I think that the people to decide to go to the show were, I would say, in 80% women. The male participants then enjoyed it a lot. I think they enjoyed a lot, like actually the masking parts, maybe sometimes even more than the women, because it's not so classical for most of men still. So it was more enriching for them. But it was a lot of, actually, you know, the project wasn't like clearly only like female created, but the female played quite a big role in it. So it was in a way natural. But I would say that, yeah, that online, I would say that it's actually more female goers, more female visitors than even in theater.
Yeah, it's a very interesting questions, because I'm not sure whether maybe our male participant or male speakers today can share with us that what Tereza just mentioned, because I'm not sure whether if the male participant, they all go to play the TV games rather than to join theater shows online. What's your thoughts about the audience response? I mean, in terms of the gender, any thoughts from David or from Tai?
I'm not really surprised by the outcome, really, because we always, when we are talking about our programming, we kind of think about it that those are the women who brings their partners to theater, or like their children. They are more, but I think that one thing is that that it's about the emotional openness and about to be used to share things, and the other one is that I know it's a cliche as well, but from what I know in all our families, it's always the female figures who kind of organize the cultural life of the family, and kind of the way they work with the schedule of programming of life, really. So it makes sense, but I would be really curious if you could use this format to create something like something more male or strictly male, because I think that would be very interesting thing, because I think that it's a very unique format, because during all COVID I felt like that almost it makes no sense to do those streamings, because I felt like as a creator that it's like calling into a voicemail and you have no insurance that someone will call you back, and it's just felt like you have a like big black hole and all your energy gets like there and you have no feedback, and what you did, it was just perfect from this sense.
And I think we have 2 minutes left. Martina, and do any questions or feedbacks that you would like to give?
We haven't any questions from the attendees, but I just wanted to confirm that according to our research of theater audiences also in our country, the majority or the biggest percentage of theater goers are middle-aged, educated women who are probably also the managers of family life, and they program also the programs for the whole family or for kids. So that's true, but I think that it's very interesting also to talk about the change of behavior of audiences in the post-COVID era, because I think we are going through a very deep transition in this aspect. Some theaters are full after the reopening of theaters. Some shows are almost empty. Planning of theater visits is really different than it used to be before pandemics. It's everything very last minute and very unpredictable. So this is something what we tried also to explore in some of our talks, and we would like to continue it because, of course, the whole online and digital shift brought a lot of accessibility of also this part of cultural life, but it's different experience than to really go to the theater with the whole conventions which accompany a theater visit. So it's a very interesting topic, maybe for another long talk, and also a long research on a change of behaviors of audiences. So
yes, because
just a comment, it's not a question.
Yes, because for Hong Kong, I have to say that we have quite a lot of attempts on online theaters by the time when we have the first wave of COVID. But this year we have the fifth wave, but because of a lot of like obstacles that we may not be able to get through, or maybe because of the cost of having online performances are quite high, that the practitioner is not easy to manage. We had a big drop of the numbers of online performances present in the fifth wave of the pandemic in Hong Kong. So I can foresee, even though I'm not sure whether it's a good thing that we now could be able to get back to the theater in person, but I have to say some of the experience that we accumulate online for making theaters on the website or online, some of the experience I am not sure whether we could be able to carry on for another stage of development. I'm not sure whether if Tai Yin could give us a few the final remarks on this as a Hong Kong theatre practitioner, because you did quite a few attempts on online performances in Hong Kong, but afterwards it seems would it be able to carry on having this kind of like experiences online after the COVID, or this year in particular? when we can enter the theater again in person.
Yeah, it's weird because I think after the fifth wave, whoever was still standing in the theater field, a lot of them are less adventurous in terms of trying to, reach out to the online forums. Because well, I luckily or unfortunately, I had 4 attempts. Basically, every wave I was doing something planned for a live show, but then it all got changed into different various forms of online or recorded performances. But in the last wave, fifth wave, the Omicron wave, we noticed that a lot of other companies who are supposed to show at the same time, in the same period that we are going to show, are backing off because they didn't think they didn't like what they did before. That there isn't enough technical support or discussions really on how to make online performances better, or any feedback. It's due to many reasons. I think theater visitors in Hong Kong, they expect they're not as open, to be honest, to online materials. This is the same as experimental works in Hong Kong. The amount of experimental theaters or non-traditional, like non-classical theater, non-public theater, it's very little, and we got very little support. And so I think there is a reason behind that too, that generally speaking, for Hong Kong audiences, they have a picture of what kind of theater they want to see. So yeah, it's very unfortunate, but they decided it's not worth investing and developing. That's my impression.
Tina, any shall we? It's I don't think we have any questions from the audience. And
no, we haven't. Maybe last remarks or comments, and maybe an invitation to the next talks.
Yes, because thank you so much for Teresa's and also David's sharing. It's really something inspiring for us, even though we cannot be able to meet each other in person, but still it's a good opportunity for us to know what happened in the Czech theater. And it's really our good start for the talk series, because for next Monday and next Wednesday we're going to have 2 other talks hosted by Martina as well, and more Czech practitioners is going to share their experience about the creative process during the COVID, and also I think more conclusion could be able to draw after the 2 talks next week. So please stay tuned with our IATC website, and also I really highly recommend our participants to check the ATI website. Is really a lot of interesting information and useful information to let you know more about the Czech theater, contemporary theater for the Czech performing arts, and also a lot of history about the Czech performing arts that you could be able to find it online. I really learned a lot from ATI, and I'm sure that we're going to learn a lot more for the next 2 talks that we are going to collaborate together. Thank you so much, Martina, for joining us, and have a good afternoon in Prague and a good evening, I mean, for the Hong Kong. And I also thank you so much for Thai-In's participation for this talk. So have a good evening, and we'll see each other in the next talk. Okay, thank you so much. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. See you soon again.